He thought the courtroom was his territory until the black woman he humiliated pulled out a badge and the entire room fell silent. What happens when the predator realizes he's been hunting his own boss? This is the story of how a corrupt officer's empire came crashing down, not with a gun, but with the truth. Let's dive into this story, but before we begin, leave me a comment telling me where you're watching from. And if you enjoy stories like this, don't forget to follow for more. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead as Officer Clayton Rourke took his place at the witness stand, straightening his crisp uniform with smug precision. His badge gleamed like a trophy, one he'd earned not through honor, but through intimidation. He had spent years forging a reputation in Ironwood's police force, feared, protected, untouchable. And today, like so many times before, he was here to bury another black defendant under the weight of his word. From the moment he opened his mouth, the disdain dripped. "I saw the suspect, Deshaun Miller, reach for something," he said with a shrug. "Could have been a gun, could have been anything. I wasn't going to wait to find out." A low murmur rippled through the courtroom, but the judge, Malcolm Everett, didn't flinch. He'd heard Officer Rourke testify like this dozens of times, and never once had he doubted him. At the back of the room, the heavy oak doors creaked open. A woman in a fitted black suit stepped inside. Every eye didn't follow her, but Rourke noticed. Tall, poised, her gait carried an air of silent command. Her hair was pulled back, her jaw set. She took a seat quietly, her dark eyes fixed on the officer at the stand. Rourke's lip curled. Another black woman, he thought, probably a cousin of the perp, here to weep and wail when the verdict comes down. He leaned back in his chair, relaxed, until she stood. "Ma'am, sit down," he snapped. "This ain't your stage." The judge hesitated, confused. "Is there a disturbance?" The woman didn't flinch. Her voice was low but resonant. "You will remove your hand." Rourke frowned. "What did you say to me?" Then he did what he always did to people who didn't back down. He grabbed her arm, firm, loud for everyone to see, and pushed her back a step. "I said sit! This ain't the welfare office." Gasps erupted. The judge froze, gavel mid-air. A few people stood up in alarm, but the woman didn't stagger. She looked him dead in the eyes, then reached into her jacket. Rourke's training kicked in. His hand twitched toward his holster, but something stopped him. The badge. Not just any badge, a gold shield, pristine, polished. "I'm Chief Alana Briggs," she said, her voice slicing through the air. "And as of this morning, I am your new commanding officer." Silence fell like a guillotine. Rourke's hand slipped from her arm, his face drained of color. Officer Clayton Rourke staggered back, his fingers twitching like they were reaching for a wall that no longer existed. The courtroom, once his arena, had turned into a stage he no longer controlled. Whispers exploded like sparks through the crowd. One juror's mouth hung open. Even Judge Everett, usually so stoic, looked as though someone had kicked the air from his lungs. Chief Alana Briggs remained still, regular, composed, her badge gleaming like judgment beneath the courtroom lights. She didn't smirk. She didn't blink. She didn't need to. Rourke opened his mouth, but no words came. His throat tightened under the weight of realization. He'd grabbed her, put his hands on his superior officer in open court, in front of a judge, in front of cameras, and worse, in front of people he used to dominate with impunity. Judge Everett finally found his voice. "Order in the court!" His gavel came down like thunder, but the noise did little to drown the growing storm. Chief Briggs turned toward the bench. "Your Honor," she said calmly, "before these proceedings continue, I respectfully request a private meeting regarding Officer Rourke's conduct, not only today but across his career." The judge stared at her, processing. Rourke's pulse thundered in his ears. "No, she can't." He stepped forward instinctively, like he could claw the moment back. "With all due respect, this is a misunderstanding," he stammered. "She assaulted me. She walked in here and—" "Enough," Judge Everett said, raising a hand. "We will recess for 15 minutes. His eyes darted from Rourke to Briggs, conflicted but intrigued. "Chief, please meet me in chambers." Rourke felt the floor slipping. This couldn't be happening. This courtroom had always belonged to him. This city had always protected him. He glanced at the jury, no longer reverent, but watching with suspicion. One woman was whispering to her neighbor, eyes wide. The gallery emptied slowly. Rourke stood alone in the center of the room, like a monument no one respected anymore. Alana Briggs passed him without a word, her heels echoing with lethal rhythm on the tile. But just before she stepped through the door to the judge's chambers, she looked back over her shoulder. One glance, sharp as a blade, it cut deeper than any words. Rourke clenched his jaw, his pride seething beneath his skin. He fumbled for his phone, shielding the screen behind a folder as he dialed. A voice answered. "Yeah?" "It's me," he whispered. "We've got a problem." Outside the Ironwood courthouse, news vans lined the street. Reporters jostled for position, cameras focused on the building's marble steps. The buzz had spread fast. A police officer publicly humiliated by the new chief, in court, under oath. Officer Clayton Rourke adjusted his tie, flanked by a slick defense attorney and two men in tailored suits. Department brass, still loyal. He stepped up to the podium, eyes sharp, jaw locked. "This is nothing more than a political stunt," Rourke said, his voice steady but burning with restrained fury. "I've served this city for over 15 years. I've put criminals behind bars, protected families, and risked my life for this badge. And now, I'm being targeted because I spoke the truth in court." Cameras flashed, microphones thrust forward. "This sudden appearance of so-called evidence," he continued, "is not justice, it's revenge. An attack on law enforcement. On me." From the steps above, Chief Alana Briggs watched with arms crossed. Her face betrayed nothing, but her jaw clenched ever so slightly. She had seen men like Rourke spin truth into lies, paint themselves as martyrs and sway public sympathy. Not this time. Inside the courthouse, her phone buzzed. A message from Internal Affairs. "Careful, Rourke still has people in high places." She sighed and pocketed the phone. She already knew this wouldn't be clean. Men like Clayton Rourke didn't go down quietly. They kicked, they clawed, they tried to drag others down with them. But Alana was ready. She turned to her assistant, a young officer named Torres. "Get me the key to the internal evidence locker. I want everything we've got on Terence Cole and every missing report from the last 10 years. Torres nodded and sprinted down the hall. The war had begun. Rourke was playing the crowd outside, but Alana, she was digging for the one thing that could bring him down permanently. Proof, not rumors, not whispers, cold, undeniable evidence. The Ironwood Police Department's internal evidence room was buried in the basement, intentionally forgotten, dimly lit and crawling with secrets. Dust coated the shelves. Folders yellowed with time sat untouched in file boxes labeled in faded marker. Most officers never came down here. That was exactly how the old guard liked it. Chief Alana Briggs walked in, flashlight in hand, flanked by Officer Torres and two Internal Affairs investigators. The air smelled of mildew and something older, something rotten. She moved to a locked cabinet in the far corner. "This one," she said. "It's not in any of the digital logs." Torres handed her a crowbar. The lock resisted, but with a sharp crack the door swung open. Inside were boxes. Handwritten labels, names. She pulled one out slowly. Terence Cole, 2013. Her breath caught. Terence had been 16 when he died during a routine stop conducted by Officer Rourke. The report claimed he reached for a weapon. No video, no witnesses. Case closed within 48 hours. But Alana remembered that case. She'd been a young officer then, and something about it had never sat right. She dug deeper and found something, wrapped in old evidence bags. A USB drive and a stack of mini DV tapes, all labeled with initials and dates. Each one corresponded to names she recognized from Rourke's old reports. Many were black men. Many were dead. "Start logging everything," she told Torres. Her voice shook, just slightly. Back at headquarters, Alana inserted the USB into her laptop. The screen flickered to life. What she saw made her stomach twist. Rourke's body cam footage. Raw, unedited. Footage that should have been turned over to Internal Affairs years ago, but it hadn't been. It had been hidden. The screen showed a terrified Terence Cole being pulled from his car. No aggression, no threat, hands raised. Then, after the boy was already on the ground, Rourke calmly pulled a pistol from his vest and dropped it next to Terence's body. A fake weapon. A planted scene. On the video, Rourke's voice was calm, professional. "Suspect reached for a firearm. I had no choice." Alana's fist clenched. She could feel her heartbeat in her throat. She looked around the room, her team standing behind her, wide-eyed and silent. "This isn't negligence," she said, her voice low and trembling with rage. "This is murder." One of the investigators muttered, "He's done. He's completely done." "No," Alana said, standing. "He's not done yet." She pulled out her phone. "Get me a press conference set up, tonight." That evening, as the sun dipped below the skyline of Ironwood, the steps of the police precinct were packed. Reporters lined up in rows, cameras focused, microphones extended like weapons aimed at the truth. Chief Alana Briggs stepped to the podium, flanked by 2 officers from Internal Affairs. She didn't wear her formal hat, didn't wear any expression other than cold resolve. In her hand, she held a small USB drive between her fingers like it weighed 1,000 pounds. She looked straight into the sea of flashing lights and raised her voice. "In my hand," she began, "is undeniable proof that Officer Clayton Rourke falsified reports, planted evidence, and committed criminal acts, including the murder of Terence Cole, a 16-year-old boy who posed no threat." The crowd gasped. Murmurs spread like wildfire. She held up the USB. "The footage you are about to see was hidden, deliberately, from investigators, from the public, from the families of the victims. But that ends tonight." Behind her, a mobile screen flickered on. The video played. Gasps turned into silence as the footage rolled. Terence with his hands raised. Rourke pulling the boy out, no resistance. Then the gun, then the lifeless body. Then the calm lie Rourke told the radio. It was cold, it was calculated, and it was all recorded. When the video ended, there was nothing but stunned silence. Then came the shouting. "Justice for Terence! Lock him up!" How long have they protected this man? Alana held her ground, unmoved. "This is not just about one officer," she said firmly. "This is about a system that allowed him to operate for years without consequence. That system ends now." Meanwhile, across town, Rourke sat in a dimly lit bar, a half-empty glass of whiskey in front of him. The television above the counter showed his face, paused on the body cam footage. The headlines screamed across the screen. "Breaking! Officer Rourke exposed in shocking murder cover-up." He stared, motionless, his skin pale. The bartender turned the volume up without asking. "Confirmed by Chief Alana Briggs, this footage directly contradicts Officer Rourke's testimony and casts doubt on dozens of his past arrests." Rourke's phone buzzed. Dozens of messages, missed calls. He didn't answer any. Then came the final blow. A call from his lawyer. "Clayton," the voice said, tense and low. "The department is suspending you, indefinitely. No pay. Internal Affairs has opened a criminal investigation. You need to disappear." Rourke gritted his teeth, his grip tightening around the glass until it shattered in his hand. Blood dripped. But he didn't flinch. They were abandoning him, everyone. But he wasn't going down alone. Clayton Rourke stormed out of the bar, his hand still bleeding, the blood soaking through a bar napkin he barely noticed. His world, once untouchable, was unraveling fast. The city he'd once policed with impunity now stared at him through suspicious eyes and damning headlines. He yanked his phone from his pocket and dialed a number he swore he'd never use. A voice answered, male, calm, dangerous. "I need a favor," Rourke muttered, pacing in the alley behind the bar. "I don't care what it costs." There was silence on the other end. "You want to make something disappear," the voice said at last. "What is it? Evidence, digital, video, case files, anything tied to Terence Cole, Deshaun Miller, or Internal Affairs." The voice paused again. "You should have called me sooner. They're already moving." "Then move faster," Rourke snapped. "You know where it's stored. Make it vanish." That night, under the cloak of darkness, a masked figure slipped into the Ironwood Police Department. No alarms, No cameras in the basement, just old locks and older secrets. A hard drive was pulled, tapes destroyed, paper files shredded and stuffed into a duffel. By morning, the entire archive tied to Rourke's misconduct had been gutted. But Rourke made a critical mistake. He underestimated Chief Alana Briggs. When she arrived at her office the next morning, the sight hit her like a gut punch. Drawers ransacked, cabinet doors hanging open, her desk smeared with black marker. Back off. For a long moment, she just stared. Then she smiled. He was panicking, and panic made people sloppy. She turned to Officer Torres, who stood frozen in the doorway. "He thinks this was all I had." Torres frowned. "Wasn't it?" She reached into a locked compartment in her private safe and pulled out a flash drive. "No," she said, locking eyes with him. "I've got the original, and now we go hunting." The morning air was thick with tension as Chief Alana Briggs stood outside a rusted chain-link gate at the edge of Ironwood's industrial district. Behind her, Officer Torres and 2 detectives from Internal Affairs adjusted their vests. Before them loomed a row of storage units, grey, lifeless, unmarked, the kind of place where forgotten things go to rot. But not today. "This is it?" Torres asked. Alana nodded, holding up the warrant. "Unit 47, Rourke's name isn't on the lease, but it's paid through a burner account. We traced it through one of his old case witnesses, someone he bullied into helping him stay off the grid." They approached the metal door. Alana could almost feel the weight of what was inside pressing against the steel. One of the detectives snapped the bolt cutter. The lock clattered to the ground. With a deep breath, Alana gripped the handle and pulled the door open. The stale air inside was thick with dust, paper, and the stench of secrets. Floor-to-ceiling boxes, old evidence bags, USB drives, some marked with names, some simply labeled "handled" in red ink. Torres stepped in, stunned. "Chief, these are all real cases." Alana walked slowly through the stacks, her fingers brushing across years of buried pain. She picked up a tape labeled M. Avery 2014. She froze. Malik Avery. A name she hadn't heard in nearly a decade. A 17-year-old boy who was shot and killed during a stop. Rourke claimed it was justified. The body cam malfunctioned. No charges filed. Her hand shook as she inserted the USB into her laptop. The screen came to life. There it was. Rourke dragging Malik from the car. No struggle, no resistance. Malik begging. "I didn't do anything." Then the shot. Then silence. Then Rourke, cool as stone, placing a rusted pistol by the boy's hand. The room went completely still. One detective turned away. Torres let out a breath like he'd been punched in the chest. This isn't just about Terence Cole," Alana whispered. "He's been doing this for years." She turned to the others. "Bag everything, secure the unit, chain of custody must be airtight." "This is our..." As they gathered the evidence, Alana stepped outside and pulled out her phone. The sky above Ironwood was still grey, but somewhere in it she saw the first crack of light. She called the DA's office. "I've got it all. Every tape, every file. We move now." Because with this, Rourke wouldn't just fall. He'd take the whole rotten system down with him. Clayton Rourke sat in a run-down motel room on the edge of town, curtains drawn tight, sweat dripping from his brow. The flickering TV screen in front of him showed the news on a loop. Chief Briggs uncovers evidence locker tied to multiple cover-ups. Police department in crisis. Below the headline, a photo of the storage unit flashed across the screen, then a still frame of his face from body cam footage. Cold, calculated, guilty. Rourke stared, unmoving, until his burner phone buzzed. One message. "They have everything." He dropped the phone. "No. No, no, no." He stood pacing the room like a caged animal. For years he'd built this fortress, his lies carefully stacked, his sins hidden behind blue silence and legal protection. And now, in just days, Alana Briggs had torn it all down. He grabbed a duffel bag from the bed, already packed. Guns, cash, a fake passport under a new name, Michael Crane. He wasn't going to prison, not after everything. He still had moves left, but as he reached for the door he paused. Through the thin motel walls he could hear sirens in the distance, multiple, closing in. He moved fast, slipping out the back exit into the shadows. He knew the city better than anyone, knew the blind spots, the shortcuts, the places no one patrolled. Back at Ironwood PD headquarters, Chief Briggs's office was buzzing. "Units are sweeping bus terminals, airports, train stations," Torres reported, tapping a map on the whiteboard. "But he's smart. If he's leaving, he's not going the obvious way." Alana paced slowly. Her mind was racing, but her voice stayed steady. "He's not thinking about escape, not just yet. He's thinking about revenge." She picked up her phone. A new message had just come in. No number, no name. "You think this ends with me in cuffs?" "It ends when I say it does." Alana exhaled through her nose. "He's watching us," she said, "and he's not done." Within the hour, Ironwood was placed on high alert. Helicopters scanned the highways. Patrol cars lined every route in and out of the city. News anchors filled the airwaves with updates. Clayton Rourke, disgraced officer at the center of a growing police scandal, is now officially a fugitive. Citizens are urged to remain vigilant. And yet, even with every eye watching, he was still out there, hiding, waiting. And Alana knew, when he came out of the shadows again, it wouldn't be to run, it would be to fight. The warehouse loomed over the Ironwood docks like a skeleton of forgotten sins. Its steel frame rusted, its windows shattered, its silence suffocating. Wind howled through cracks in the walls, carrying the smell of oil and sea salt. Chief Alana Briggs stepped through the warped entry gate, her footsteps echoing on the concrete floor. The air inside was thick with dust and something darker, tension, like a wire pulled tight. She moved slowly, hand resting on her sidearm, eyes scanning every shadow. "Rourke," she called. "It's over. Don't make this worse." A voice replied from somewhere deep within the building. "You came alone?" It was him. Clayton Rourke stepped from behind a stack of crates, gun in hand. His shirt was soaked with sweat, his eyes bloodshot and feral. He looked like a man who'd lost everything, and knew it. "I warned you," he growled. "You had your moment, your little press conference. But you don't understand, this city was mine." Alana didn't flinch. "No," she said quietly, "it was afraid of you. There's a difference." Rourke raised his gun. "You think taking me down changes anything? The system built me. There'll be another." Alana's voice hardened. "Maybe, but not today." The silence snapped like a twig. Rourke lunged forward, pulling the trigger. Bang! One shot rang out, only one. Rourke froze mid-stride. His gun clattered to the floor. A red bloom spread across his shoulder. He collapsed against a crate, groaning. Alana's weapon stayed raised, steady. Her stance didn't shift. "You're under arrest," she said, walking toward him. "For murder, for obstruction, for every name you thought the system would forget." Sirens wailed outside. Backup had arrived. As officers stormed in, guns drawn, Alana took one last look at Rourke. Now, just another man on his knees, bleeding, powerless. And for the first time, justice stared him in the face. The courtroom was packed, wall to wall. Rows of reporters, citizens, activists, and family members filled every available seat. Cameras from every major network lined the back. The people of Ironwood had come not just for a verdict, but for a reckoning. At the defense table, Clayton Rourke sat in silence. His suit hung awkwardly on him, as if it no longer belonged. His hands were folded, but his eyes betrayed the storm beneath. The prosecution had been relentless. Over 2 weeks, they'd laid bare every lie, every forgery, every life destroyed under the shadow of his badge. The footage of Terence Cole, Malik Avery, and others had been played over and over again, reminders of what the silence had cost. And now, it was over. The jury filed in. 12 men and women who had once feared speaking out against cops like him, now empowered by truth. The judge, Malcolm Everett, turned to the foreman. "Has the jury reached a verdict?" The woman stood. "We have, Your Honor. In the matter of Officer Clayton Rourke, on the charge of murder in the 2nd degree, how do you find the defendant?" She looked Rourke straight in the eyes. "Guilty." Murmurs swept through the room. Hands covered mouths. A few people wept. Others nodded quietly, the weight of years finally beginning to lift. The judge continued. On the charge of evidence tampering? Guilty. On obstruction of justice? Guilty. Rourke didn't move, didn't blink. He had built his world on power, on fear, and now, brick by brick, it had crumbled beneath him. In the front row, Chief Alana Briggs sat motionless, her hands clasped in her lap, but her chest rose and fell with a quiet relief that could not be spoken. As the judge read out the sentence, 25 years to life, with no possibility of parole for the first 20, Rourke was led away in chains. For the first time, the city saw him not as a cop, not as a man of authority, but as what he truly was, a criminal. Outside the courthouse, the people of Ironwood gathered beneath a warm afternoon sun. Reporters shouted questions. Children held signs that read, "Justice for Terence," and "Believe us now." Alana emerged through the courthouse doors. Flashbulbs exploded. Microphones rushed forward. "Chief Briggs," one reporter asked, "how does it feel to bring down the most protected man in the department?" She paused, then looked straight into the lens. "This was never about bringing down one man," she said. "It was about breaking a cycle, and we've just taken the first step." The city of Ironwood was quieter now, not silent. No city with wounds this deep could heal overnight, but quieter. The protests had become meetings, the shouting turned into conversation, and for the first time in years, people walked into the police station not with fear, but with hope. Chief Alana Briggs stood alone on the rooftop of the precinct, staring out over the skyline as the sun dipped below the horizon. In her hand was the final report. Rourke, case closed. She should have felt peace. Instead, all she felt was the weight of what came next. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She opened the message. "Ironwood was just the beginning. You're not ready for what's coming next." Below it, a photo, grainy, black and white, a different officer, a different city, and another dead black teen. Alana stared at it for a long moment. Then she put the phone down slowly and closed the case file. She turned and walked toward the stairwell. Justice hadn't been served. It had only just been awakened. If you enjoyed this story, please consider subscribing to my channel. I've poured a lot of time, heart, and soul into creating emotional stories like this one, and your support truly means the world to me. Thank you for joining me on this journey.